Strip everything away for a second. Your house, your clothes, your grocery store, your thermostat, your lock on the door, your phone, your shoes, all of it, gone. Now picture yourself standing barefoot on a wide-open plain somewhere in East Africa. It is 200,000 years ago. The sun is about to go down. You have no idea what temperature means, but your skin knows. It is getting cold. You can hear something moving in the tall grass about 60 meters to your left, and you cannot see what it is. Your stomach is empty. Your feet are bleeding from the rocks. You have a sharpened stick in one hand and absolutely nothing else. This is not a survival show. There is no camera crew. There is no tap out. There is no helicopter coming. This is Tuesday. This is every single day of your life. And somehow, against everything, the version of you standing in that grass lived long enough to have children, and their children had children. And so on for roughly 10,000 unbroken generations until one of them had you. Not a single link in that chain broke. Not once. Every ancestor you have ever had survived long enough to pass life forward through a world that was actively, creatively, and relentlessly trying to kill them. And the story of how they pulled that off is not one story. It is a stack of solutions so strange, so brilliant, and so desperate that by the end of this, you will never look at your own body the same way again. Let us start with the first problem, the one that came before every other problem, the one your ancestors faced the moment the sun touched the horizon every single evening for hundreds of thousands of years. Night. For roughly half of every day, the world went dark. Not dim, not the kind of dark you experience in your bedroom with the curtains drawn. Absolute dark. The kind of dark where you cannot see your own hand. The kind of dark where the only light in the entire world is whatever stars made it through the clouds. And the animals that wanted to eat you could see just fine. Leopards have a reflective layer behind their retinas called the tapetum lucidum. It bounces light back through the eye twice, giving them roughly 6 times better night vision than yours. Hyenas are similar. Wolves, similar. Every major predator that hunted early humans was built to operate in darkness. Your ancestors were not. Human eyes are daytime equipment. We traded night vision for color vision millions of years ago, which is great for finding ripe fruit and completely useless when something with 6-inch claws is creeping toward you at 3 in the morning. So the first survival problem was not food. It was not weather. It was not disease. It was 12 hours of blindness every single day in a world full of things that could see in the dark. And the solution, of course, was fire. You have heard that fire was important. Every documentary says it. Every textbook lists it. But most of them massively understate what fire actually did, because fire did not just keep humans warm. Fire broke the rules of the natural world in a way that nothing else ever had. A campfire creates a perimeter, roughly 10 meters in every direction. Inside that perimeter, predators will not come, not because they are afraid of heat, because fire destroys their greatest weapon, darkness. A leopard approaching a campfire at night is not invisible anymore. It is backlit, exposed, visible from 100 meters out. Its entire hunting strategy collapses. And on top of that, fire is a phenomenon that predators evolved to flee from. Lightning strikes, brush fires, volcanic eruptions. For millions of years, fire meant uncontrollable destruction. That fear is hardwired. When a predator smells smoke and sees light, something deep in its brainstem screams retreat. So when your ancestors figured out how to keep fire burning, they did not just find a tool, they found a force field. They carved a small circle of safety out of the most dangerous environment on Earth and sat inside it every single night for hundreds of thousands of years. And here's the part most people miss. Fire did not just protect them from predators, it gave them extra hours. Fire added 2 to 4 usable hours every night, hours where people could cook food, repair tools, tend wounds, and most importantly, talk. Anthropologist Polly Wisner spent years recording conversations among the Jew, Hawansi Bushmen of the Kalahari, one of the last groups on Earth living close to the original human pattern. She found that during the day, about 80% of conversation was practical. Who hunts where? Which water is safe? Where the tubers are ready? But at night, around the fire, 81% of conversation was stories, myths, adventures, tales about people in faraway places, jokes that made the whole camp laugh. The campfire was the original theater, the original classroom, the original church. It was where knowledge stopped dying with individuals and started accumulating across generations. A young hunter who had never seen a crocodile could hear about one from an elder who nearly lost his leg to one 30 years ago. That story, told around a fire, might save that young hunter's life a decade later. Multiply that by 1,000 campfires across 1,000 generations, and you get something no other animal on Earth ever had: a growing, compounding library of survival knowledge stored not in books but in the memories of every person who ever sat close enough to the flames to hear. Fire solved the night, but the night was only the beginning. The next thing that should have killed your ancestors was the cold, and not just ordinary cold, Ice Age cold. The kind of cold that covered entire continents in sheets of ice 2 miles thick and dropped temperatures so low that exposed skin meant death in hours. The last major ice age peaked roughly 26,000 to 19,000 years ago. Ice sat on top of Europe, Asia, and North America. Trees vanished. Food disappeared for months. And humans, remember, evolved in tropical Africa. Our bodies are warm weather machines. We have almost no body hair. We have no blubber. We cannot hibernate. We cannot even shiver efficiently enough to survive a single night below freezing without help. Every animal around them was built for the cold. Mammoths had thick fur and a fat layer inches deep. Cave bears could slow their metabolism and sleep through the worst months. Reindeer could migrate hundreds of miles to warmer ground. Humans had none of that. On paper, we should have been one of the first species to disappear when the temperature dropped. But we had hands, and those hands changed everything. The earliest evidence of humans using animal hides for warmth goes back at least 300,000 years. Cut marks on bare paw bones found in northern Europe show exactly where someone sliced the skin away from the animal to pull the pelt off clean. Those hides became cloaks. Rough, loose, leaking heat through every gap, but enough to survive a cold night near a fire. Then, roughly 30,000 years ago, someone invented something so small it sounds absurd. A needle, a thin piece of bone or ivory with a hole drilled through one end. One anthropologist called it possibly the most important invention in human history, and the argument is hard to argue with. Because the needle turned a loose animal skin draped over your shoulders into a fitted coat with sealed seams, closed sleeves, and layers that trapped body heat against the skin. A blanket and a coat are two completely different survival tools. The needle is what turned one into the other. And the shelters. People imagine cavemen hiding in caves, but the truth is stranger. In what is now Ukraine, where there were no caves and almost no trees, Ice Age humans built houses out of mammoth bones. Skulls and femurs formed the base. Ribs and tusks curved upward to make a dome. Hundreds of bones in a single structure, packed with hides, moss, and earth. Some of these houses are 18,000 years old, built at the absolute peak of the Ice Age, and they were used again and again for centuries. Many of these shelters had a feature that modern engineers would recognize immediately: a cold trap entrance. The doorway was dug lower than the living area. Cold air, which is heavier, sank into the entrance and stayed there. Warm air rose up to where the family slept. Your ancestors figured out thermodynamics tens of thousands of years before anyone gave it a name. But surviving the night and surviving the cold still left the biggest daily problem unsolved: food. Here is the uncomfortable truth about ancient human life. You were hungry almost all the time. Not the kind of hungry where you skip lunch and feel irritable. The kind of hungry where your body starts consuming its own muscle tissue because there is nothing else to burn. In a world without agriculture, without storage, without refrigeration, every calorie had to be found, chased, dug up, or killed, and most of those calories fought back. Hunting large animals was extraordinarily dangerous. A mammoth could crush you, an aurochs could gore you, even a deer, cornered and panicking, could break your ribs with a single kick. And if you got injured on a hunt, there was no hospital. A broken leg in the Paleolithic was often a death sentence, not because the bone could not heal, but because you could not move, and a person who could not move could not eat. So ancient humans developed a hunting strategy that sounds almost too simple to work. They ran. Humans are one of the only mammals on Earth capable of something called persistence hunting. We are terrible sprinters. A lion hits 60 kilometers per hour. A human tops out at maybe 45 for about 10 seconds. But try asking that lion to run at a moderate pace in 30-degree heat for 4 hours. It will collapse. It will die of heat stroke long before you do. Because humans sweat from nearly our entire body surface. Most mammals cannot do this. They cool down by panting, which requires them to slow down or stop completely. We can run and cool ourselves at the same time, which is genuinely bizarre by mammalian standards. Add our upright posture, which is remarkably energy efficient at moderate speeds compared to a four-legged gallop, and you have an animal that can literally outlast almost anything on Earth over the right distance and temperature. Ancient hunters would wound an animal and then simply follow it for hours, across miles of open terrain. The animal would sprint away, overheat, stop to pant, watch the humans appear again on the horizon, sprint away again, overheat again, stop again. Eventually, its body gave out. Not from blood loss, from heat. The hunters walked up to a collapsed animal that was too exhausted to stand and finished it with a spear. We are, in the most literal and biological sense, endurance machines. Slow, soft, ugly endurance machines that can keep going long after everything faster has given up. But food was not just about hunting. It was about not dying from what you ate. And this is a dimension of ancient survival that almost never gets discussed. The world is full of plants that will kill you. Beautiful, abundant, easy-to-reach plants that look perfectly edible and contain compounds that will stop your heart, shut down your liver, or destroy your nervous system within hours. Nightshade, hemlock, castor bean, water hemlock, manchineel fruit. The list is enormous. Your ancestors had no field guide, no app, no warning label. They had trial and error. And error, in this context, often meant death. The knowledge of which plants were safe, which were poisonous, which were edible only after boiling or soaking or fermenting, that knowledge was built one tragedy at a time and passed down through generations of oral tradition. Every plant you eat today without thinking is safe because someone at some point tested it with their body and lived long enough to tell someone else. And then there was water, the thing you need more urgently than food, more urgently than shelter, more urgently than almost anything except air. A human being can survive weeks without food. Without water, you have about 3 days. In hot climates, less. And here's the cruel geometry of water in the ancient world. Every animal needs it. Every predator knows this. So the water hole, the riverbank, the spring, the one place you absolutely had to visit every single day was also the single most dangerous location in your entire landscape. Crocodiles waited submerged at the edges. Lions rested in the shade nearby, knowing prey would come to them. Hippos, which kill more people in Africa today than any other large animal, defended their stretches of river with a territorial aggression that bordered on psychotic. Your ancestors had to solve an impossible equation every day. You must drink. The place where you drink wants to kill you, and you cannot skip a day. They solved it the same way they solved everything else, together. Groups approached water in coordinated formations. Some members watched for predators, while others drank. They chose water sources based on visibility, avoiding thick vegetation where ambush predators could hide. They mapped safe routes and safe times, approaching rivers in the early morning when crocodiles were sluggish from the cold night, and avoiding waterholes at dusk when big cats were waking up. Ecologists call this the landscape of fear, the idea that prey animals do not just react to predators when they appear. They constantly map the spatial distribution of danger across their entire environment and adjust their behavior accordingly. A gazelle does not just flee when a lion charges. It avoids particular valleys, particular water holes, particular hours of the day based on a continuously updated mental calculation of where predators are likely to be. Ancient humans did this too, but they did something no other prey animal could do. They did it collectively and cumulatively. Groups shared their mental maps through language. Individual observations pooled into a group understanding that grew across generations. This valley is dangerous in winter when the bears come down. This river bend has crocodiles after the rains. This trail has fresh leopard markings. Go around. The predators had instinct. Humans had a database that never stopped updating. And then there were the invisible killers. The ones you could not see, could not hear, could not smell, and could not outrun. Parasites, bacteria, viruses. Disease has killed more humans across history than every predator, every war, and every natural disaster combined. And for most of human existence, there was no germ theory, no antibiotics, no concept of contagion. People simply got sick and either recovered or did not. But ancient humans were not helpless against disease, even if they did not understand it. Fire, again, played a critical role. Cooking food kills bacteria and parasites that would have caused widespread death from foodborne illness. Smoke drives off mosquitoes and biting flies, the primary vectors for malaria and other insect-borne diseases that have killed more humans than any single predator species in history. And group living itself provided a form of protection. Researchers studying modern hunter-gatherer populations have found that bands maintain territories large enough to limit contact with neighboring groups, which slows the spread of infectious disease. Small, mobile, widely spaced populations are naturally resistant to epidemics because the pathogen runs out of new hosts before it can spread far. The devastating pandemics that define later human history only became possible after agriculture packed thousands of people into permanent settlements with shared water supplies and domestic animals living in close quarters. Your ancestors avoided pandemics not through medicine, but through lifestyle. They moved. They spread out. They never stayed in one place long enough for disease to catch up. But here is the piece that ties everything together. The piece that explains why humans survived all of it. Not fire alone, not tools alone, not hunting alone, not endurance alone. The thing that made every other adaptation work. Each other. A single human in the Paleolithic was dead. Not metaphorically, literally dead. One person cannot keep a fire burning and sleep at the same time. One person cannot chase an animal for 6 hours and carry the meat back alone. One person cannot watch for predators in every direction. One person cannot raise a child and hunt and gather and build shelter and tend injuries and keep watch at night. Humans survived because they did none of these things alone, ever. Groups of 20 to 50 people moved together across landscapes, sharing every burden, splitting every task, watching each other's children, caring for each other's wounds, grieving each other's dead. The cost of belonging to a group was enormous. You shared your food. You followed the group's decisions, even when you disagreed. You tolerated people you did not like because the alternative was exile, and exile was death. But the return on that cost was survival itself. A group could rotate fire watch through the night, so everyone slept. A group could surround a predator from multiple angles and drive it off with noise and thrown rocks. A group could carry an injured hunter back to camp instead of leaving him to die. A group could pool knowledge from dozens of lifetimes into a single collective understanding of the landscape, the seasons, the animals, the plants, the water, the weather. Language made this possible, not just any communication. Complex, symbolic, generative language. The ability to describe something that is not physically present, to warn about a danger someone has never seen, to tell a story about a place no one in the group has ever been. To say the thing I saw near the eastern ridge 3 days ago had yellow fur and black spots and moved like water through the grass. And if you see tracks that curve like this near the river, go around. Without language, every person had to learn every danger firsthand, and firsthand lessons from leopards tend to be short and final. With language, one person's survival became everyone's knowledge, and that knowledge never stopped growing. The predators had claws and speed, the cold had patience, the diseases had invisibility, the hunger had persistence, and your ancestors had each other. A network of shared knowledge, shared labor, shared warmth, shared risk, growing slowly across thousands of generations until the soft, slow, naked animal that should have died in the first 100,000 years was not just surviving anymore. It was winning. By roughly 50,000 years ago, the balance had tipped. Humans had fully modern language, layered social structures, long-range planning, and coordinated action at a scale nothing else on Earth could match. They were not just avoiding predators. They were hunting them. Cave lions, cave bears, saber-toothed cats. The bones are processed. The pelts were used. There is evidence of ritualistic treatment of predator remains, as though killing them had become something more than defense. It had become a statement. We are no longer prey. The woolly mammoth disappeared. The saber-toothed cat disappeared. The giant ground sloth, the cave lion, the cave bear, the dire wolf, gone. On nearly every continent, within a few thousand years of fully modern humans arriving, the megafauna collapsed. Climate played a role. But the variable that showed up in every region, at every time, right before the extinctions, was us. The animals that had dominated their ecosystems for millions of years, that had survived ice ages and volcanic winters and tectonic catastrophes, could not survive a 5-foot-tall primate that sweated too much and never shut up. Because that primate had fire and language and spears and accumulated knowledge and the terrifying ability to learn faster than evolution could adapt. We were never the biggest, never the fastest, never the strongest. We were just quietly, relentlessly, unstoppably the most dangerous thing that ever walked on this planet. And tonight, when you flip a switch and light floods the room, when you open the fridge and pull out food that someone else grew and someone else shipped and someone else stocked on a shelf, when you set a thermostat and the temperature adjusts itself, when you lock the door and climb into a bed and close your eyes without a single thought about what might be outside, every single one of those small, ordinary acts is the end of a story that took 300,000 years to write. Your ancestors solved every problem the planet threw at them. Darkness, cold, hunger, disease, predators, loneliness. They solved them with fire and needles and language and bone houses and sweat glands and stubbornness and each other. And you are the proof that not one of them ever failed.